good, ladies and gentlemen? Today we're going to be talking about this fantastic card that absolutely delivered what everybody thought we would get. And first off, we're going to start off with Abdullah Mason versus Sam Noakes. This was a 12-round war. Sam Noakes was a live, tough dog in there. He was going there for the win. He wasn't there to take a step back, lay down, nothing. He wanted that title, and he was going to go through whatever it took to get that title. But we saw with Abdullah Mason, he was too skilled, too sharp. Abdullah Mason ends off walking away with the WBO world title at 135 to become the youngest champion in boxing at only 21 years old. So let's talk about this fight a little bit. Abdullah Mason, he has the longer reach than Sam Noakes, but he chose to fight in the phone booth, bringing the fight towards Sam Noakes, which ended up playing in Sam Noakes' hands a little bit. Abdullah's team in the corner between every round was telling him to use his range and saying things like bop 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 bop, trying to get Abdullah to let off fast 2-punch, 3-punch combinations and use his lengthy jab, but Abdullah just kept getting drawn into a fight, which could be a blessing and a curse. It's entertaining for the fans, but as you saw, he had okay defense, but being so offensively leaves you open for looping shots like we saw Sam Noakes hit him with. But ultimately, Abdullah Mason showed a gas tank, and he showed everything, but I would just like to see him tighten up on his defense and his situational awareness and just listen to his corner a little bit more. But other than that, everything looked great. The pocket work looked great. And Sam Noakes looked tough. I thought he would get stopped. I thought he was not as good as he showed he was, but he was looking okay in there. He took a couple body shots, gave Abdullah a couple body shots that Abdullah didn't like, and Turki Al-Sheikh, after the fight, came over to Sam Noakes and said he wants to see him on an England Riyadh season card again. A couple fights I would like to see Sam Noakes in is maybe Edwin or Zepeda, but for Abdullah Mason with his next fights coming up, he is now one of the 4 champions at 135. We got guys like Tank and Shakur who are also champions. I don't think we'll see Tank fight any of the champions anytime soon. Shakur was on Twitter saying, he looked great. Congratulations to him, but don't rush the pup yet. So I don't think we'll get Shakur versus Abdullah anytime soon. We could see Abdullah versus Andy Cruz, or the winner of who Andy Cruz is fighting coming up. Or I would like to see Abdullah fight Edwin De Los Santos. The reason I would like to see Edwin fight Abdullah Mason is because Edwin is that tough fighter like Sam Noakes is, but Edwin's got a little bit more skill. So I'd like to see Abdullah tighten up on a little bit of things and make those adjustments to fight on the outside and at range, keep Edwin at bay, and I think he could eventually stop Edwin. And if he is to stop Edwin, then I feel like that's enough experience to fight with the top guys. But if you can't get Edwin, I would like to see him get in the ring with Kid Austin. I think that's a good fight. I think it looks a lot like the Sam Noakes fight, but I think Abdullah can outbox Kid Austin and possibly stop him. Now moving on to the next fight. Now here we saw Jesse Bam Rodriguez absolutely put on a beautiful masterclass against Fernando El Puma Martinez. Just effortlessly following Puma, cutting off the ring, setting angles, counter punching. And then even when he was about to stop Puma, he was smiling before he ducked down to the left and then came over top of Puma's jab with a left hand and sat down Puma after Puma said he was going to kill Bam, he was going to do all this. This was just a beautiful performance from Bam. I have no complaints about this performance. Everything looked beautiful. It was so good that in the 7th round, they were talking about Bam's future opponents and Junto Nakatani and Naoya Inoue. That's how beautiful this performance was. They didn't even have to break a sweat for Puma, and Puma was a tough fighter. I thought this was going to be Jesse Bam Rodriguez's toughest fight to date, and it was probably one of his easiest, I can't lie. Just a beautiful performance from Bam, no complaints, nothing to say about it other than it was just beautiful masterclass, power punching, power boxing, just all of the above. Defense, angles, footwork, skills. It's just all there with Bam Rodriguez, and he's top 4 in the world with me, mentioned with guys like Usyk, Bivol, Naoya Inoue, Terrence Crawford, just all of those fighters. Now for Bam, he is 1 belt away from undisputed at 115, but I think it's time to move up to at least 118 because now Bam has just gotten to the point where he's so good, we don't even want to see him waste his time on, fighters like, that's in 115. I just don't think there's anybody who can give him a challenge. We have Taraji at 115, but I think that's going to be a super easy fight. He's got guys at 118 like Naoya Inoue's brother that he could go up there and fight that we just saw beat Tenshin Nasukawa. Or he could jump up after the Nakatani and Inoue fight and fight the winner, fight the loser, and set up the match with the winner. I think Bam has a very good chance at beating Junto Nakatani. I think I favor him to beat Junto Nakatani, But I think when it comes to Naoya Inoue, I think that's probably one of the best 50-50 fights in boxing today. I don't know if the weight's going to be too much for Bam. I don't know. Bam said he would like to end his career at 135, which is, if he can do that and become successful at every single weight class he goes through, that's a real GOAT status right there. I think Bam Rodriguez has the talent, the skill. We just have to see if his body allows it. But those are some great future dream matchups we have in Bam Rodriguez versus Nakatani and Bam Rodriguez versus Inoue. Next, we're going to talk about the most talked about fight on this card leading up to this fight. Devin Haney versus Brian Norman Jr. This fight was a spectacle in the lead up. Both fathers going at it, both fighters going at it. We had Brian Norman saying things like he was going to kill Devin Haney. And I didn't see it. I didn't see anything in Brian Norman to challenge Devin Haney other than his power. A lot of people got caught and wrapped up in how Brian Norman was talking to the media. And that's just, you just can't predict fights based on talk. You have to look at the skills. You have to take everything that they put in the ring, and you got to just analyze it off that. And we saw Devin Haney go in there, and in the first round, he was just getting into rhythm. Brian Norman had a good first round, and then in the second round, we saw, everyone said Devin Haney better not get hit with a left hook, but we saw Devin Haney, he's going to catch Norman's hook, and then after catching it, he's going to fire a left hook right back at Brian Norman that puts him on stanky legs, and then Devin Haney steps up, throws a left hook, steps a little off the line to the left, and throws a right hook right through the guard, sitting Brian Norman down on the canvas. The crowd goes crazy, and if the crowd's going crazy in Saudi Arabia, something must have happened that was crazy. That is the most energyless crowd probably in boxing. Brian Norman gets up. He's a little hurt. Devin Haney tries to put his foot on the gas. He has Brian Norman against the ropes, and Brian Norman weathers the storm. And then Devin Haney gets back to power boxing. And at 147, we saw an improvement in his power. I was surprised to see. And if Devin Haney's jab wasn't already good, now that he has power, and we saw him throw shotgun jabs, power jabs to Brian Norman that stopped Brian Norman right in his tracks, I think Devin Haney's going to be a problem at 147. This is probably going to be his prime years. And I just don't really see anybody that challenges Devin Haney at 147. If anybody was going to challenge Devin Haney, I think it was Brian Norman. And he made Brian Norman look like a Regis Prograis in there. Brian Norman is a younger fighter than Devin, the same reach. I think he's an inch smaller. He was undefeated. He was known as this boogeyman of the 147 division. And Devin Haney went in there and made it look like easy work. For Brian Norman, though, I don't think he's done. I think he wins a lot of fights at 147. I don't see a lot of other people that beat him. I think maybe Karen can use his movement to give Brian Norman problems, but I don't think Karen's movement is on the level of Devin Haney's by whatsoever. So I think Brian Norman probably learned a lot from this Devin Haney fight. And I think he can go in there and he can beat Karen. Brian Norman's career is not done. It is just getting started. And 147, I think, is Brian Norman and Devin Haney's division. And I can see them suiting back up and getting back in the ring together when Brian Norman's more experienced and putting on a better fight than this one was. For Devin Haney, though, for his next fights, we got Ryan Garcia versus Mario Barrios fighting each other, which is supposed to be in February or January. I forget which one it was. But that is not a done deal yet. We have had no announcement. So we could see Devin fight the winner of those. We could see Devin fight Rolly. We could see Devin fight Jack Catterall, Conor Benn. There's a couple matchups I want to see. I don't think anybody really gives him a challenge until he gets to 154. And then we got people like Virgil, Boots. I think Virgil probably beats Devin. I think Boots beats Devin. But I think Devin gives Virgil a really tough fight. Devin probably gives Boots a really tough fight. I think that movement, that newfound jab, that newfound power Devin has. And let's talk about how Devin's comfortable now, sitting there in the pocket, catching shots on his gloves, which we've never really seen out of Devin. His pocket game has always been probably his biggest downfall in a lot of these fights, getting touched up in the pocket. But this fight, he looked strong, man. He was catching shots on his gloves, giving it back, downloading Norman, hitting Norman with jabs, keeping him at range. This 147 Devin is here to stay, and he looks like a newfound monster. For Benavidez, we saw him stop Anthony Yarde. I saw this coming, but after the fight, we saw him talk about Gilberto Ramirez going up to cruiserweight and challenging him for the title. So, if he wins that fight, we could see him, fight maybe Jai Opetaia next at cruiserweight, or we could see him come back down because we know Bivol and Benavidez have a words agreement. a handshake deal agreement to fight after, Beterbiev and Bivol 3. I think that's a good fight. I think Benavidez could beat Bivol and Beterbiev. I don't think Benavidez is the greater fighter out of Beterbiev and Bivol, but I just think, Beterbiev and Bivol going already 24 rounds with each other, already being older in age at the end of their careers, that's going to take a lot out of them. And if they're going to go another 12 rounds, I think that's just going to take even more out of them. So I see Benavidez beating both of those guys. But Benavidez is just looking great, man. He's on an absolute dominant run. He's going to be the next superstar of boxing. A lot of people know him. This was a stacked card, but I had to explain, who really Haney and Bam and Abdullah was to casual fans. But when I got to Benavidez, they said they know Benavidez. They know the kind of Mexican monster, the El Monstro that Benavidez is. Benavidez is just on a different level. I think he's going to go down as top 2 of this generation. Yeah, man, Benavidez is just crazy. Benavidez is a monster. It's exactly what his nickname says. The Mexican monster. He is a monster in that ring, and he's just relentless. We saw him hit an 18-punch combo on Anthony Yarde with the same hand. So, yeah, he's just on a different level. And for Anthony Yarde, I think it's time. He's slowing down. He doesn't really do anything excellent no more. He took a lot of punishment in this fight with Benavidez. Maybe go off and get a, easy win and ride off into the sunset, or, just hang it up and, think about your future, your well-being in the future. And, Anthony Yarde had a great career. He hurt Beterbiev. He took Beterbiev, a couple rounds. And I just don't think he has it no more in him. So I think it's time for him to just maybe, retire. And, he had a good career. But with no further ado, this has been, my talk of the Ring 4 card. I'm excited for Shock Fulton coming up. We got a couple good fights coming up. Jake versus AJ. I have some breakdowns on those coming up soon. With no further ado, much love. Peace.